Yeah. All right. So welcome everyone. It is good to be with you today. Welcome to Tobin Solutions Microsoft Teams Deep Dive. My name is Jeremy Cherney, and I am the owner of Tobin Solutions. And I'm just happy to be with you here today to share about Microsoft Teams and get into a few more of those features that people have been asking about for online meetings and applications and really how to use Teams. We call it a deep dive, and we have just under an hour here to be with one another, and there's so many things with Microsoft Teams. So I picked a few things to show you today. We can always do more deeper dives in the future. Um, so along the way, there's going to be some learnings and discoveries. We are having a glitch with Zoom right now and having the chat available. So we're looking into that. So I apologize for that. We will unmute everybody at the end for Q&A. And if you just have just a burning question you've got to ask, you can unmute yourself and, just interrupt, and we'll include that. At the end, you're going to get a survey, and you're going to get a copy of the presentation slides and the video, because we are recording this. And any feedback you can give us about this specific webinar or Tobin webinars in general, love to hear back from you. We appreciate the feedback. It's really valuable to us. So a little bit about Microsoft Teams and a background on this, like how do you even get Microsoft Teams? So some of you may already have it. Some of you may be thinking about getting it. It's available with every Microsoft 365 subscription option, so or just about all of them. So Microsoft 365 is a monthly subscription service from Microsoft. They have different tiers of service with different offerings, and it's what people would consider a cloud or a software as a service type solution, where Microsoft is hosting and managing the applications and your data on their servers. So you just get to focus on usage and customization and training and other things, but you don't have to worry about the back end aspects of it. Microsoft has a 99% plus uptime guarantee, and where Tobin Solutions can help is with security, support, migration, administration, integration, and development. And Microsoft 365 is so much more than Microsoft Teams. I like this metaphor of the Swiss Army knife. So there's so many things that you can do with Microsoft 365, which used to be called Microsoft Office 365. And today we're really focusing on Microsoft Teams and really looking at that particular tool in the tool set and some of the things that you can do with it. If you haven't got Microsoft 365, or you're thinking about getting it, these are some of the different tiers that a lot of our customers use. There's many other tiers with Microsoft 365, some less, some more in terms of cost and the features and functions you get. But all of these include Microsoft Teams. So what is Microsoft Teams? And this is per Microsoft. It is a unified communication and collaboration platform that combines persistent workplace chat, video meetings, file storage, and application integration. And it runs as an application, and it is available on Windows, Mac, the web, iOS, and Android. So what that means is you can really take Microsoft Teams anywhere. And we'll get into a little bit more about some of what their marketing speak means in terms of how you can actually use the applications. Some key features in Microsoft Teams. First of all, it's work from anywhere on any device. Again, so whether you're on a PC, a Mac, whether you've got your phone or a tablet, there is a version of Teams that will run there for you, even if you're on a Chromebook. What's great about that is, what we're seeing and what Microsoft is promoting is that Microsoft Teams is really kind of a platform unto itself. There are some companies where the people working at those companies spend pretty much their entire day in Microsoft Teams. So it really has become kind of a platform unto itself. You get to organize and collaborate through what are called teams and channels, which we'll talk a little bit more about. There are one-to-one chats and group chats. You can do voice and video calls and meetings. You can share and work with files and collaborate with others. And you can even integrate Microsoft Teams with other applications. So With all of that, you can see how this can become this platform where really all your work and collaboration can be done there. A little bit more about how they organize things. So this is a screenshot of Teams, and this is actually an older screenshot a little bit. Like anything with the Microsoft Teams, they are changing the uh, product look and feel on a pretty regular basis. So you'll see things like that. Um, and the way it's got set up is on the left side, you see the apps and the teams and the channels that you've got. And then on the right side, you see what's available inside of that. Where you have your online meetings or whether you're integrating applications. You can access SharePoint from here, OneNote, Planner, other apps. If you've already started using Teams, you've seen some of these things, but it really is this one pane of glass, this one window into everything you've got inside of Microsoft Teams. The way Microsoft organizes Teams is by organizing it into what are called, I got some kind of auto forward here. Sorry about that. With Microsoft Teams, first of all, you create your different teams. And your teams are collections of people, maybe conversations or files, and they're all in one place. And those might be things like, a team could be a department. It could be a project you're on. It could be an ad hoc group or something like that. And then inside of each team, you can create different channels. And those are ways of being able to section out some of those things that you're on in that team and organize them around particular topics or projects or disciplines or, whatever you want. It's pretty flexible. And you can also have security around those channels. So while you might have a lot of people involved in one team, you may have a subset of that team that only needs access to a particular channel. Maybe there's something confidential in there. So you're also able to do security around those different channels. So you can, when you start to create these, and this is some work you want to do a little bit on the front end. If you want to get into Teams, you want to start playing around with it, that's awesome. We encourage you to do that. Before you really start rolling it out for everybody and kind of using this to add value to what you're doing in your business and how you run your business, you really want to think through these things a little bit ahead of time. And so, thinking through them on your own or having a conversation with someone at Tobin about how to structure this properly could save some rework in the future and save some frustrations. Something else you have inside of Teams, which a lot of people are using now, is the ability to have files and collaborate on files. So right now you might store your files on, if you've got a traditional server, you might be having things for, you might have your X drive or your S drive or something like that, where you are storing all those common documents. Maybe you've got some documents set up in SharePoint already, in Microsoft SharePoint. Maybe you've got files in other systems like Dropbox or Google Drive. Either way, once you put those documents into Microsoft Teams, you can see those documents, you can create folders and organize them. You can put documents under different teams. You can put documents under different channels even. So it allows you to further organize how your documents are set up. But once they're in Teams, you can view and edit inside of Teams with a basic editing interface. You can also do what's called co-authoring once these documents are stored in Teams and inside Microsoft SharePoint. Co-authoring means you can be in the document at the same time as someone else and actually be editing the document. So we use this a lot for our team meetings. Maybe we've got an agenda we're working on or some collaborating on a project and we're putting in notes. Everyone can have that document open at the same time and go in and edit at the same time. Whereas traditionally with something like a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, if it was on your server, you would open it up and say this is read-only access. With Teams, you can actually be in it at the same time. So it's really powerful from that perspective. And like I said, a lot of people are using Teams now to share these files. And what's great about this is once you put them in Teams, remember that Teams application is available everywhere. So if you upload a Word document and you're editing that, or you've got a PDF or a PowerPoint or any kind of document and you put that into Teams, Now someone on your phone, you can now see those applications and even edit those applications right within Microsoft Teams. So really powerful for mobility, really powerful for collaboration, and really powerful from a security perspective, because now you have easy access to those documents without worrying about VPNs or remote desktop or other things where you're trying to get access to those documents. Hmm. Okay, so we discovered an issue with with the chat not being available right now in Zoom. And in order for us to enable that, we'd actually have to go out of the meeting and go back in, and we're not going to do that right now. So if you've got, like I said, if you've got a burning question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask it. Otherwise, at the end, just make a note of it, and at the end, we'll absolutely unmute and be available for questions. So I apologize for not having the chat available. Speaking of chats, inside of Microsoft Teams, you can do chatting. Now, if you haven't used Teams before, but maybe you use something like, you're messaging people, right? You're doing on your phone. Maybe you text somebody and you're texting back and forth. Maybe even with your coworkers and you're doing work, texting back and forth. That's fine. That works. However, what's the disadvantage of that is that it sticks on your phone. So when you're back at the office, you've got those chats, they sit out there on your phone and you don't have access to them from your computer typically. If someone leaves your organization, those chats are not available, right? Because they're sitting in those texting you're doing back and forth. So what we're encouraging people to do is do that chatting right inside of Microsoft Teams. You can just chat one-to-one, so if you want to chat with your boss or your partner or your coworker, you can just click on their name and just start chatting back and forth. And again, this is all inside the application. So you could start chatting. Maybe you're sitting outside a customer in their parking lot and you're chatting back and forth with someone back at your office. And then you go inside and you have your meeting and you go back to your office, you open up Teams, that whole chat is there. So it always flows with you, which is great. You don't have to copy or paste any of that. And it's secure and it stays inside your organization. So you can do these one-to-one chats, but you can also do group chats, just like you can with regular texting on your phone. You can invite multiple people and you can chat and have those group chats available. Those one-to-one chats and group chats, they kind of stay on their own inside of Microsoft Teams. And those are valuable and useful. However, what also becomes really valuable with these one-to-one chats and group chats is you can actually chat inside a channel inside one of your teams. So if you look at this image, you can see there's a team called Northwind Traders, and there's a marketing team or a marketing channel. So now every time you're chatting inside of that channel, all of that chat stays there. So it's already organized and categorized around marketing. So you don't have to reference what it is. And if you come back to your marketing channel, you'll see the updated chats that are there. If you add someone new to the organization, they can go back and see some of those older chats that are there. So it's really cool to be able to organize those chats back and forth, because right now, how do you do it? You may go walk over and talk to the person. You may be emailing back and forth around marketing. Now you can actually just chat back and forth with these and have that kind of live conversation going around. You can even chat around documents, which is really cool. So let's say a lot of times that's what we're doing, right? Maybe you're working on a proposal or a budget spreadsheet or something like that. Rather than having to attach the document in an email and go back and forth with that, you can actually just reference the document in Microsoft Teams and chat back and forth, and the chat sticks around that document. So it's a really cool way of organizing those valuable communications and that valuable feedback and back and forth you're having around a document, as opposed to trying to find it in some big list of chats you're having with that person. So it helps you start to organize and focus your communications, which leads to greater and more effective collaboration with your team. And again, it's persistent. It moves from device to device. So you can be chatting at work about a document. You can then go head out of the office. Now that we're trying to go back to the office more, you could head out of the office, have it on your phone, and continue that chat and even be able to see that document right from your phone or tablet. Or if you've got, a desktop at the office and you use a laptop on the road, all of that will be available for you because once you're in Teams, you see everything you have access to. So I talked a little bit about the chatting. So you've got these one-to-one and group calls too. So it's not just chatting. You can actually have voice and video calls with people. You can do an audio only. And sometimes, how we know things are these days. Sometimes audio only is best if people aren't in a location where they've got good internet service. And sometimes turning off your video is more effective in terms of having a good solid uh, communication. But you can do audio only. You can do full video conferencing. You can do a meet now or even schedule a meeting. And you can even invite outside guests. And we'll show a little bit more about how that looks. So this is great, right? This is other collaboration, right? Sometimes you're chatting back and forth. Maybe you're emailing back and forth with somebody in the way you would have done it before. But now you've moved to chatting inside of this. And sometimes just like, hey, we're not communicating here. Let's just pick up the phone and have a quick conversation. And you're picking up the phone you can just do it all inside of Microsoft Teams. So as you're chatting right there, you can click on the person's name and click the little phone icon or click the video camera icon, and suddenly you're doing voice and video conferencing with them or with a group. So really powerful way to have effective communications and have it all, again, in one place, all controlled inside of Microsoft Teams. You can even invite guests into those meetings and calls too, or you can do, you can invite participants, and those participants can be outside guests. One easy way to do that is right from within Microsoft Outlook. So if you open up Outlook and you create a new meeting and you go in and add people like you normally would to a meeting, but you click in the ribbon, you click this Teams meeting, it'll automatically add a link into the body of the message for that Teams meeting. And it'll show up inside of Teams as a Teams meeting available for you to join. And if they're someone outside your organization, they'll get a link that they can also click on and be able to click that link and join your Teams meeting. So that's a powerful feature, right? That's a lot of times we're meeting internally, but so many times these days, with COVID and pandemic and restrictions, or just any time, it's just a little bit easier sometimes rather than driving to meet with somebody, still face to face, but through that camera, you can do a Teams meeting with them. So it's a really easy way to do it is just do it right through Outlook. Now, one of the things that Teams doesn't have by default, but we're kind of accustomed to in other applications like Zoom and other video conferencing solutions, is the ability to have someone be able to call in from a landline, or from a regular phone. I don't know if anybody remembers old phones like this. I remember it was so great having the old Princess phone. And for those of you that don't know what that circular thing is that's lit up, that's called a dial phone, where you used to have to put in someone's phone number and put your finger in a hole and rotate it to the stop and let go, and it'll go click, 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 click. And then you would do that for each number in the phone number you're calling. Now Touchstone's available, of course. And for some of you, you want to be able to add this in, right? Where there's someone's ad and they just don't have good internet service, and it's best to be able to make a phone call in. You can add the audio conferencing add-on to Microsoft Teams, which is really cool. So it's only available for the tiers of the E1 and E3 licensing right now. I think Microsoft might change that in the future because their competition with Zoom and others. But it's pretty low priced, $4 per user per month that really needs that feature. So if you've got 10 people in your company and everyone's using Teams, but only 1 or 2 people really need to use that audio conferencing add-on, you only have to buy it for them. That's one of the nice things with Microsoft 365 is you can mix and match the tiers of service. So for $4 a month, you can add that on and be able to then, when you invite someone into a Teams meeting, not only will they get the link to dial in, they'll also get a phone number that they can dial in with as well. So that's a cool feature. If some of you have been looking for that or missing that, if you need it, if you don't need it, you don't, but if you do, it's great to know that it exists. Teams is a voice video collaboration platform, and this extends to really just a full-on phone system. So some of you may have an in-house phone system, or maybe you're using an outside, phone system like TDS or Ring Central or 8x8. I mean, there's so many of them out there. Microsoft has their own, and it's called Business Voice, and it works right in with Microsoft Teams. So it works right with the Microsoft Teams application, which is really great. So it's a cloud-based phone system. You've got voicemail and call transfer and auto attendance and call queues and a lot of those kind of fancy features that some people want in a phone system. It includes that dial-in audio conferencing. And but you can all use it through the Microsoft Teams application. So if you're in Teams all day long, you just have to have the place where you can dial the phone number to send and make calls or to receive calls directly into your Microsoft Teams application. It's $20 per user per month, and you only have to do it for the users that need it. So, maybe you've got, again, 10 people that need Teams, but maybe only 5 are really ones that are using phones and answering phones for your business. Then you only need to add it for them. And that $20 is pretty competitive. That we seem to see a lot of the best of breed type voice and phone systems are kind of targeting in around that $20 per month user, and you can port your existing business phone numbers to it. So it is a full-on Microsoft provided PBX phone system that you can get into, and it's great. It works really well, and it's again, one application, one place to go for all of that. Another thing that we do a lot in Microsoft Teams and Zoom calls these days is sharing your desktop, sharing your screen. So anytime you're in Microsoft Teams, whether you're in a one-to-one chat or a group chat, or maybe you're in a full-on meeting, you've got that option where you can click. If you look in where these red boxes are, you'll see a little box with an up arrow. You click on that, and that's going to give you the option to either share an entire screen or to share a specific application. And that's just great, if you're doing presentations, if you're doing training, if you're doing support, and you can even have people share their screen. So really great for that. Again, you can use this feature with guests as well. So if you've invited outside people, you want to do a presentation for a client for a new solution that you're designing for them or something, you can go ahead and share your screen and share PowerPoint or whatever the application is that you're using. And again, they keep upgrading this feature and adding more capabilities. It's getting better with, if you're trying to watch a video through it or share the sound from your computer, you've got other options when you go in and share to your screen to tweak some of those things. You can get some better quality around that. Also, if you're on your device, if you're on a phone or a tablet, you can see these shared screens as well. Let's talk a little bit about guest access in Microsoft Teams. Everything I'm showing you, by and large, there's restrictions on it, otherwise Microsoft wouldn't be able to really charge for the service, is that you can actually invite guests. Now, I'm not talking about inviting a guest to a meeting. I'm talking about inviting a guest into one of your teams. I showed you before the Microsoft Teams and the channels. If you've got partners, if you've got vendors, if you've got special clients, you've got people you're collaborating with that are outside your business, but you want them to be able to get into your Teams environment, you can actually create and add guest users. So they can get in, they can see your documents, they can chat. They don't need a Microsoft 365 license even. You do want to be careful with this because you want to make sure, if you're going to allow this kind of thing that, it's something from a company policy that you're going to allow, but it's great. And if they're already a Teams user in the upper part of their Microsoft Teams, they can just click, they can be in their existing Teams environment, or they can click into your Teams environment and see what you've made available to them. So this is, again, really powerful. If you've got a business partner, anyone, you can just see where this can be great. Because right now, how do we do it? We send emails back and forth. We do different chatting and video conferencing solutions. We're sharing documents with Dropbox and Google Drive and all these other things, or OneDrive. This just puts it all in one place. And now they're using the exact same thing you're using. You can chat back and forth. They can edit those documents. They can do all of that. So there's a lot of power there in being able to do that. So you can start to think about where are those use cases in your business where, boy, you'd really want someone to be able to get into a specific Microsoft team that you have set up. Again, this is one of those things where if you're making things available, you want to watch out for the security and make sure that you want this turned on or not, who can have access to do this, maybe even which people can be made as guests, or you can open it up to everyone. You know, it's your choice, but you just want to make sure you understand what you're getting yourself into when you're doing this. If it's something you want to be able to do, make sure you do it so it's secure and you don't accidentally open things up to people you don't want to have access to. Once you're inside a meeting, Microsoft has added breakout rooms. So if you've been in Teams or other solutions like Zoom where you've been part of those breakout rooms, you get that. So when you're inside the meeting, you click the breakout room icon, which you can see highlighted in the first picture. You create the breakout rooms and you've got some options to create them automatically, how many rooms you want to create, whether you want to do it manual and assign people to particular rooms. And then you open up the room once they're inside. There's a few more little details around this, but it has that feature. So if that's something you've been missing or you didn't know it had it, it's great. And you can see if you've participated in breakout rooms, or maybe you've been in a meeting where they weren't using breakout rooms, and you've thought to yourself, wow, it'd be really nice to be able to just chat with a couple of people here, or kind of go off in our own corner and be able to brainstorm on something. This is where the breakout rooms come in really handy. Or maybe you're in a meeting with 50 people. It's hard to have a conversation with 50 people. It's a lot easier to break out into maybe 10 groups of 5 and be able to work on different things. So built into Microsoft Teams, great feature when you need it. This is an area where you want to be smooth with these, so you want to be able to practice these and try them out before you do them, so that when you're ready to do the breakout rooms, people are getting to the right rooms and that kind of thing. Again, I apologize if some of you would just join the chat feature. We're having a Zoom glitch with that. So the chat feature is not available. If you want to unmute yourself and ask a burning question, you can do that. We'll be taking questions at the end as well. And again, apologize for not having that available as we're going along. Joining on a second device is another great feature of Microsoft Teams. So remember, you've got Teams with you. You've got it everywhere. You've got it on your desktop, your laptop, on your phone, on your tablet. So maybe you're, maybe sitting in a parking lot or something like that, and you're chatting with somebody, or you're in a meeting with somebody, and you now get back to your office and you want to go back off your phone and you want to go onto your desktop computer. So what's a great option is to be able to, when you go and you launch Teams on that other device, you're going to see this bar at the top that says you're already in a meeting on another device. What would you like to do? Would you like to join here? So when you click to join, you have the option of either just transferring to that device, so you'd be getting off your phone and onto your desktop. You also have the ability just to add that device as a second device. And so that can be really handy. I was at a place where I had a computer, but there was no camera or microphone on the computer. So what I did was I joined from my phone, and then I opened up Teams on the computer so I could see everybody on a larger screen, as well as be able to share content. So that's another nice use case for this. So you can use that. Super handy. And like I said, Teams is, for a lot of you, is all about mobility. If you're a salesperson, if you're on the road, you're meeting with customers, you're going back and forth. Maybe you're working at home and you got to go make your kid a peanut butter and jelly sandwich while they're in school or something like that, doing remote learning. You can, get off your desktop, you can continue the meeting, bring it with you on your phone, and go to another space while you're doing that. So a lot of great use cases for this. And so, take a look and see where you might find that to be of value for yourself. Some other things you can do that you may have seen. So Microsoft has another application called Microsoft Forms. And when you're in a meeting and you go into the details of the meeting and you're the meeting presenter, or you put on the meeting, you can add a Microsoft Forms app to the meeting. Once you've got that added, you can then click on polls and create a new poll and actually get results right when you're inside the meeting or presentation. This is a real simple one. I don't know what you guys would say. Sometimes in a pinch, I'll have pineapple on a pizza. For some people, it's a no-go ever. But sometimes these can be fun. They can be ways to engage people. Maybe you've been at meetings where you've seen these. It's a way to kind of gather information in the middle of a meeting, right? Maybe you've got 50 participants in a meeting. Is what you're saying landing for people? Are they understanding what you're talking about? Are there some topics you want to put out there that maybe you want to gauge the feedback on to see whether that should be something you want to include in your meeting or not? You can do these. You can have the results show live, but you can also save and export them as well. So this can be a really handy feature for those that want to grab more information. I talked about that Microsoft Forms application, and so that's a great segue into other applications with Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams, like I said, is really becoming a platform for Microsoft. It's not just chat and sharing documents and doing voice and video calls. You can integrate other applications, both prepared by Microsoft or made available by Microsoft, but as well as other third parties. So you're seeing a lot of big applications out there creating applications that integrate with Microsoft Teams. So this could be, you can even see on there, Zoom has an integration for Microsoft Teams. A lot of the like Salesforce or other applications you might use have integration apps with Teams, and those vary with what they can do. It might just be presenting information into a Teams channel. It might be more direct integration where you can enter information into Teams and it shows up in your other application. Could be sharing information back and forth. It's going to kind of depend on what that application does, but there are literally hundreds of them and their list is growing. Some are better than others. But if you're using these other applications, right, a lot of us are using not just Microsoft 365 as a cloud service. You're probably using many other cloud services nowadays. And odds are high they're either have an app that integrates with Teams or they're looking at creating an app to integrate with Teams. And so all you do is you go down the left side on your Microsoft Teams app and you click on the little apps button. It brings up this little app. I'll call it an app store, but most of these in reality are free. I don't think there's any yet where you can charge for, although that might come at some point. And you can pick that application and add it in. And you can control who can add what applications and who can manage the applications from a security and administrative perspective. You may not want people to be adding applications into Teams for some reason or only certain applications. So you've got some power over what that looks like. And see which ones, check out some of these other applications you use and see if they've got some Teams apps. It might really improve your experience of those applications as well as Teams and provide that tighter integration. One of the apps that's pretty cool from Microsoft is what's called an approval app. So Microsoft made this available, I think, a few months ago. And so what you do is you add the approvals application, and in this top window, you'll see what's called the approvals hub. So an approval is a great way to take a system or process and add that approval step to it. A lot of us have these systems and processes in our business already, right? Maybe your salesperson submits an expense report to your controller or to you as the business owner, right? And you have to look at the expense report and approve it. You're the sales manager and you get those expense reports. And how do they do that now? Maybe you've got a system for it already. Maybe they've got a spreadsheet and they are emailing it to you, and then you look at it and go back and forth with that. With these approvals, you can actually use the approvals app and the hub to request that. So you can send it to your sales manager and say, here's the approval for my expense report. And they can literally just click approve or reject or view the details on it. So what a great way to take all of these things and put them into a system that automates that approval process. It becomes very clear accountability, very clear whether those have been looked at or not and who's working on them. You can assign different approvals to different people. You can even have chains of approvals, which you can get more sophisticated with these. So maybe, someone can approve an expense report up to a basic dollar amount, but if it goes above a certain dollar amount, someone else needs to approve it. You can start to build those kinds of things with this approvals application. So it could be time off requests, maybe it's a pricing discount. You can really start to see like, wow, how often in our business do we have a process that requires somebody to make a request and have someone else approve it before they can move on? So this is a great way to do it. This is a great application inside of Microsoft Teams. I encourage you to take a look at it. Microsoft Teams, I was talking about those applications and the pre-written applications. Microsoft, has the ability to create custom applications. There's some different ways to do this. Some of them are easier than others. In other webinars, we've talked about Microsoft Power Apps and Power Automate to do some basic applications and automation. You can integrate those right into Microsoft Teams. You can even write very sophisticated applications. So if you're using another business system that has what's called an API or an application programming interface to pull information out or to push information into an application, you can actually put that right into Microsoft Teams. So it's great for notifications. It's great for workflows or reporting or data collection. Maybe you've got something on your website that has a request for a proposal on there. You can have that website integration when that website proposal comes in to automatically go into a particular team and channel for somebody to act on. Maybe you've got some other application that's not listed as one of those. Maybe it's I don't know, could be any kind of sales system or inventory management system or any kind of business management system. And you want to pull out a report every day from that and have that automatically go to people as a dashboard. You can do all of that with these custom applications and integrations. So this is really that cool place to just sort of daydream and create, what could you invent? What processes could you automate or enhance or improve on the effectiveness of, or what problems could you solve with this application integration, and put that right in front of the people that need to see that from any device, from anywhere in the world. This is another little cool feature. It's called email to a channel. So any channel inside of Microsoft Teams, if you have this enabled, you open up the channel or you right click on the channel and you click the three dots and then you click that get email address option. When you do that, you'll then get to the next box over here where it says get email address, and it's kind of blurred out right now, but you'll actually see an email address that's used there. And then you can click on advanced options and say, who can use that email address. And then you can say you want that. So anytime someone emails something to that address, it's going to show up in that channel. So that's really cool, right? Sometimes we're doing these emails back and forth with a client, and then we want to move it into Teams to maybe chat about it internally. So what do? We either forward the email and say, hey, go check out that email that I forwarded you. Let's chat about it. Or you're copying and pasting parts of it into a Teams chat. And you then go back and forth on it. With this, you can actually just have this email go right in, just forward it right to that email address, and it'll show up right in that channel. And you can even use this for outside email addresses. So you could set up an email address and forward things like maybe you've got an info at your company name, and you want, whoever's in charge of new sales to get those emails automatically. Now that could lead to some spam because we know a lot of those come to that info address, but maybe you've got some other address that isn't as widely known. Maybe it's an address you put on the bottom of your invoices. If you have a question about this invoice, email invoice questions at mycompany.com. Those invoice questions that from they get emailed in can go right into Teams so that you can track them. You can see what's there. You can chat about them. You can do whatever you want to do with them. Or start to add that workflow to them. Add those other applications I was talking about. Maybe someone has a questions an invoice and you want to give them a discount or something based on the invoice and you want to have that approved. That'll be a great example of you've got that invoice there. You've got that email that's automatically inside of Microsoft Teams on that invoice. You make your request for somebody to give them a $25 discount, and whoever has to approve that discount can use that approval app to go in and approve it. So you can see how these things can start to integrate with one another, these different components. We're going to be finishing up early. I could have added more slides here. We'll see what we have for questions. Here's another little tip for people. Kind of a cool thing. When you're inside of Microsoft Teams, and you start to have different teams and channels and documents you're working on, you can start to get a lot in there. And the way the Teams interface is designed right now, you're kind of in one big pane of glass there that you're just kind of watching everything from. And so you can hit that back button to go back where you were. But if you hover your mouse over those buttons, it'll actually show you the last items that you were working on. So a real quick way to get to something you were just recently working on. So Tobin Solutions focuses a lot on cybersecurity, and Microsoft Teams is no different with security. There's a lot behind this, as you're seeing, right? There's things you can do inside of your organization. You can put documents in there. You can be chatting with people. You can be inviting outside users. You can be doing inviting guests. You can include applications. So there's a lot of things you want to think about when it comes to security around this. People can be totally mobile with this application, right? So you want to start, considering what the security impact is. Who has access to what? Who can change what? What do we do if it's not available? You want to start thinking about the security aspect of Microsoft Teams, and we can assist with that. From a security perspective, if you're not turning on two-factor authentication with Microsoft Teams, you should be doing that. With all of your Microsoft 365 and everything else you use in the world, turn on that two-factor authentication. Make sure you've got the security set up the way you want it to be. And everything's encrypted end-to-end. It's HIPAA compliant. If you're dealing with healthcare information, you can control who has access to what apps. You can control guest access to specific people or specific guests, or whether you allow it at all. There's even more, but these are just, again, you can see when you start using this, and really any new technology, you just want to make sure you understand the security implications of what you're doing. So that leads us to our Q&A. First of all, let me just thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate this. This is our first big deep dive onto Teams. It looks like I didn't time this well and may have had access for a few more tips and ideas on how you can use it. So next time we'll include those. Again, you're gonna, if you when you get that survey, if you can complete that, you'll get a copy of this slide deck and access to the video and your feedback as far as that survey goes. Let us know how things went for you. I'm available to speak on this. If you want to do more training on Teams, we can help you with that. If you want to do more configuration of Teams on some of these features we've shown you, or you want to look at some custom development, we can assist with all of that. Also available to speak on other topics if there's anything you're interested in, other security topics or other 365 topics, either to your business or maybe to any of business groups you belong to where you think this would be useful. let us know. I saw a couple people clapping on the screen here, so thank you for that. Again, I apologize that the chat isn't available. We'll have that fixed for next time. But feel free to right now to unmute yourself. I will be available now for about the next 10 minutes for questions for anything you've got, or if you want me to go back and review a slide, or you've got other questions, now's a great time for that.
I don't know how you're handling this, Jeremy, but it's Angie Turner. I raised my hand. Was that visible?
Yeah, I am seeing that now. Thanks, Angie. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Good. I got in a little late because one of the links worked and one didn't. So I missed some of it. Will this be recorded?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
We'll be sending out the video on it.
Awesome. One question that I had regarding the apps, I noticed that there was a Zoom app. What would be, if we're using Zoom and Teams, I would say quite interchangeably these days, what would be a reason for putting the Zoom app in Teams, just if you want to switch over to do a Zoom meeting as well? Is that the benefit?
No, I'd have to look more deeply into the app and what features it offers. What I would have to assume, at least on some of it, is whereas Microsoft Teams is getting a lot better with their video conferencing and that, Teams still has a few features that Teams doesn't have yet, or I'm sorry, Zoom has a few features maybe that Teams doesn't have yet, or people are familiar with that. There's some other things that Zoom can do with chats and things like that. So I think it's probably some of that, maybe the ability to create new Zoom meetings and such from there, or be invited to them. But I have to look more deeply at the app and what it's available to do.
Sure, and I'm sure it could be client preference too. Maybe a particular client is more comfortable in using Zoom. Okay,
Exactly.
makes sense.
Exactly. Great, thanks for the question.
Hey, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Herb from Angwell.
Hey, Herb.
Hey, I got a question about the file storage. Where is that stored, and what's the capacity? And then, is there like a backup procedure? If someone deletes a file that you want to restore, how does that work?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So this is a great question because it's also something that's a lot of people don't quite get about how Teams works. So Teams, when I showed you that slide before, in fact, I'll just pop back to that real quick. So when I show this files and collaborating, all of these documents, Teams does not natively store any documents. There's actually no document storage inside of Microsoft Teams. What it does natively is it allows you to see and access and upload and work with documents that are stored in Microsoft SharePoint. So all of these documents, when you look at these documents I've got on this slide, this capacity planning and capacity spreadsheet and daily hot 5, those are documents that are actually stored inside of SharePoint, and Teams just handles it for you automatically in the background. There's nothing special you have to do. So if you create a new document inside of Teams, or you upload a document into Teams, or you drag and drop a document into Teams, it's actually in the background storing it inside of SharePoint. So in this case, this one that says Leadership Team General, it would actually create a Leadership Team SharePoint site in the background, and this is getting a little geeky for some of you, but it creates a SharePoint site in the background automatically, and then it creates a general folder, and then all the documents get stored in there. And then you can also expose other links to other SharePoint sites inside of Teams if you want. And then all the recycle bin, anything that Microsoft has natively around backup and disaster recovery for SharePoint is what you get as part of your SharePoint environment. So I think natively, if you delete something from SharePoint, I think it's like 14 or 30 days, it goes into the recycle bin before it's gone. If you have an outside service, so like we have a solution that backs up Microsoft 365 data, including SharePoint. So those things would get backed up externally if you wanted something like that. But it's all, even though you're seeing it inside of Teams, it's stored natively in SharePoint.
Okay.
But you can also expose other storage services like Dropbox and Google Drive and others and still see it from inside Teams. Did that answer it for you?
Yes, yes, perfect.
Cool. Thanks for the question.
Hey, Jeremy, this is Dan with Angle 2.
Hey, Dan.
Just to elaborate on that, anytime you create a team, by default, it automatically creates the SharePoint site, the associated SharePoint site, and it will create the storage location. It will create OneNote notebooks. It will create a team collection site for that team, and also a email address, a standard email address for that team as well.
That is correct. Yep. Yep. And if you've already started with a site, a SharePoint site, you can convert it to or augment it as a team site. So it'll show up inside of Teams if you've got something you've got there that wasn't there when you started using Teams. Thanks for the question. Who else? Feel free to unmute and ask your question.
Jeremy, it's Robin McNerney. I've got a question with regards to the approvals. Is there a way to get to those approvals? Meaning, in some cases, we have to be able to, for audit purposes, would have to be able to show the approval. Is there a way to get to that?
I believe the answer is, so right now you've got this, if you look at this image I've got up on the screen and you look at the back screen, that's what's called the approval hub, I think they call it. So you can see everything from there. And so I'm not sure if that would be sufficient for what you need, because you can see everything that's been approved there as well. I don't know if there's offhand if there's an easy way to export that, but I would imagine if that's probably available or would soon be available.
Hey, Jeremy, it's Dan again.
Yeah.
You can also log into your office.com profile, and in your app launcher on the left, your application tray, there is an approvals section where you can see any active approvals that are waiting for you and any approvals that you've participated in.
Great. Yeah, that's one of the cool things. Thanks for that, Dan, that a
Yep.
lot of what you're seeing here is available in other places as well. So approvals is not just a Teams thing, it's actually a Microsoft 365 wide thing. They just expose it here in Teams. That's great. Other questions? I like that we're all helping each other and getting in the conversation. That's so cool. Any other questions? We got about 2 more minutes.